This is Harness Elite Daily. Your edge in all of today's harness racing action. Let's get into it.
Okay, it's May 12th. Welcome to Harness Elite Daily. I'm your host, JB. This is one of our first podcasts. We're really working out the cobwebs. This is sort of a shakedown cruise to get used to the software and the routine of doing this every day. But we're here for harness bettors, for people who want to make money playing the harness races. It's one of the greatest gambling games out there. It's a race where it's a game where with study and work, you can get an advantage and you can have a lot of fun with it as well. So let's get going though. First up, just some thoughts from last night. I'm constantly reminded just how good of a driver Jason Bartlett is. And last night was no exception. I tried to beat him in 2 races and, I paid the price. Both times he made the lead and held. I just couldn't believe it. One of note was at race 7 last night at Yonkers. There was a favorite driven by Brent Holland, Mate Phil, who got into the pocket and just couldn't get to Bartlett, who was on the one Boston bound at a price too, right? Or a price for Yonkers, right? 7-2 or 4-1, something like that. And, Bartlett made the lead and, Brent, Holland sat in the pocket. He waited. There was no pressure on the outside. So you knew the pocket would be a little harder than it should be. But, you get to the stretch and you always think with Brent Holland, like he's going to get to work on a horse, and he got to work like he always does. And the horse did respond, especially late in the stretch. But, Bartlett had just controlled the tempo so masterfully that, there was no getting to him. It was an impossibility. And it's sort of like watching an artwork, watching an artist in action when you see a drive like that. So it was really impressive. And then, of course, history repeated itself 2 races later. There's a horse that I loved, driven by Pat LaChance, Verdun. These sort of middling drivers that are on the one post with a dominant horse. Usually there's value in those plays at Yonkers. So, I really liked the horse. I don't remember what the off odds were. I know he wasn't the favorite. Bartlett was on the favorite. But the favorite on paper, wasn't that much better. This is Catalpa Rescue A, again, driven by Bartlett. Bartlett clears the lead. And our horse, again, is in the pocket and, can't get to the favorite. Now, this time was a little bit different. I thought that LaChance maybe was slow in reacting to, Bartlett firing up his horse in the stretch and, lost probably a full length going to the outside, which, happens. And then he just couldn't get to him. And I was actually surprised that Verdun, driven again by LaChance, held on for second. But again, you watch these races and, people say, well, Bartlett gets all the good drives. He certainly does get most of them, but he can win in ways these other guys, I think, can't. And he's very versatile, and his work on the front end, I think, is really strong. So kudos to him. It's a science to decide whether to bet with Bartlett or against him. And, I'm always working on that. Anyway, so today, like I mentioned, is May 12th. There's 111 races today. So it's your sort of typical spring day on a Tuesday where we've got quite a bit of racing action today, as opposed to where we were in the winter when on a Tuesday we might have 60, 70, 80 races. So today's pretty packed. One of the things that we like to do is do a sort of computer analysis of where the value might be in the races today. And we definitely focused in on a couple of tracks, Plainridge and Yonkers. We thought stood out as ones where there could be some big prices that come home. The chalkiest at first pass. Now this is just all done by a computer. the chalkiest sequence of events looked to be at Western Fair and Harrington. So no real surprises there. But if you play chalk, that's where you want to go. And of course, if you play chalk and you're playing exotic, horizontal wagers, multi race wagers, you've got to beat heavy favorites to get a big price. And it happens, right? It can happen. I know last night at Western Fair there was a sequence of favorites that were really short priced that made it home and that suppressed the payoffs. But if you've got beatable favorites, you really need to capitalize on those in the exotics, especially at the tracks that are typically a little bit chalkier. And chalky tracks, it usually just a function of how the races are written, that the fields aren't that deep or the colony of horses isn't as good. But, as players, we have to learn how to deal with these different situations. In terms of big carryovers today, really Scioto is the only one I saw of note. They have a $20,000 guaranteed pick 5. So it's a guarantee versus a carryover, but you get the gist. So you might want to check that out. Our first look at it is it looked like there were 2, maybe 3 heavy favorites in that sequence that I thought might suppress the payouts, but it's worth taking a look at it. I'm going to look at it again later in the afternoon before they start their monster 16 race card. I'll put aside a half an hour and review that and see if I want to get involved. Today's track of the day is Plainridge here in Massachusetts. It's a 5/8 track, and it's very speedy, speed favoring. You see really fast times there, which probably the most important consideration with the times is that horses shipping in or horses shipping out are often not evaluated correctly because of just how wild the time difference can be between Plainridge and either other 5/8 mile tracks. It's very fast, right? Even so horses can run, 153 and not even, it's not even a big deal. Whereas they move to a half mile track in Maine and they'll run 158 or 159, right? So there's a little bit of speed there, a speed analysis that you need to do when you consider Plainridge. But it's a great track to bet. There's a cool driver colony there that you mostly just see in New England. And of course, it's my home track. I live about 2 hours from it, so I love to head down to Plainridge. They do a great job, on the weekends with food trucks, and there's a casino there, and you can sit on the grass. It's a nice experience at Plainridge. So they're the track of the day. Post time at Plainridge today, I think, is at 4 o'clock. Let me just check, make sure. Yes, 4 o'clock is the first of their races. The sequence that I like today, though, that I did choose as a top value sequence, comes from Plainridge, and we'll talk about these each day as part of our sequence called the Big Ticket. So this is a pick 4 at Plainridge that I think is worth getting involved in. And it looks like a lot of fun to play this sequence. It starts in race 5. And again, we do an analysis, and you can see it at harnesselite.com of each of the pick 4s, pick 5s, pick 3s, where we look and see, what's the probability of a payoff above the median or above the average. And so this is one that had a 78% chance of being above the average. And on the website, you could see you could find all the statistics about what is the average and things like that. But when I play pick 3s and pick 4s, especially, I'm looking for things. I'm looking to get involved in sequences where, for whatever reason, the computer has flagged them as, having a high likelihood of that payout, of the payout being more. Then I get a level deeper. I dig in and I try to decide, is this sequence actually worth it to get involved in? So anyway, Plainridge, fifth race starts the sequence as an open handicap trotters for $25K. This is the linchpin of the whole sequence. How you play this race is going to determine what happens here for you. Now, there is a heavy favorite in here that we've flagged, and that's number 6, Memory and Imagination. clearly the class of the field, had recent strong performance. We predict his off odds to be below, well below even money. Well, we also predict that he has a 50% chance of winning. So he's going to be overbet for sure. And, he's probably beatable. And so I think that should be top of your mind, that if you want a bomb payoff in this sequence, you take a stand here and you beat him. If you want to try to get a payoff later on in the sequence, then you single him, right? If you're trying to beat him, which is what I'm going to try to do, then I think there's a couple horses to look at. The one is what's his name? I had it right here. The one is a good horse. He's a class riser. Mocha Java, I think is his name. Yeah, Mocha Java, driven by Jay Randell. He was really live out of the 8-hole last time. Swept to the lead, put up a good time. Going up in class. So we don't know his true speed measure right now, right? And like his past performances, he's clearly found his mojo, since in the last month. So he's won three in a row. Not by, the last two, not by much, less than half a length, but he may have the speed to beat the 6. So he's interesting. Maybe more interesting, if you're looking for a price, is the 4 Stormont Divide, driven by Corey Stratton. He broke last time, so that automatically upgrades him into, you'll get some value. Horse did recover from the break. It was like not a total, well, it was a total loss in terms of he wasn't going to win the race, but it's not like he was 70 lengths back, right? I think he finished within 10 or so lengths. But certainly this horse has the class to win. He's won at this level, 3 back. And so you've got to like that in terms of value. He's also got a late kick, right? When he does hit the board, he's sort of boom or bust horse. When he does hit the board, it's with a late rush. Now, why do I like a late rush? Because it looks like both the 6 and the 1 could battle for the lead. And when they battle for the lead, then, I think a good tactic is to look for somebody that could pick up the pieces if that battle proves costly. Now, the 6 is very versatile. Again, 6 memory and imagination. He can win, sweeping to the lead. He can win in a grinding trip. He's a really, really good horse, right? I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's 2-5, actually, right? So, sort of buyer beware that, it's not a Hail Mary to beat him, but it's not, it's not going to be easy. Right? Anyway, those are the 2 choices I think to beat him. Again, the 1, a surprise class riser who's better than we think. That's tough, right? I mean, he wasn't winning by open length, so something would, I think, need to go wrong for the 6 for that to happen. But certainly, in these trot races, it's an open trot for 25,000. By the way. Anything can happen, right? You could lose a favorite off stride. Who knows, right? Anyway, so those are the moves there. 1, 4, and 6. However you play it, good luck. I definitely think you should get involved because the rest of the sequence, races 6, 7, and 8, I think feature some races that are wide open. Now, I don't think you're going to get a price, right? I don't think that there's going to be a bomb that drops necessarily, and you're going to get some huge price on any of these horses. But I think the cumulative effect of 3 of them in a row at 4-1, like this could be a ticket that pays, especially if you got home a bomb up front or you singled a favorite, right? You've got to find a way to get some equity in this ticket and do something different, right? So that's on you as a bettor to think about it, how you're going to do that. 6th race, though, one horse that could be some value is the 4, comes in from Northfield. Let me tell you about this guy. Driven by Brad Irvine, so there's going to be equity in this because, he's one of these middle-of-the-road drivers that doesn't get a lot of money, doesn't get a lot of love. The horse is second up for a new trainer, comes from Northfield, probably has the speed to be competitive at this track when you look at the variance. Second time Lasix, right? Like 30-1 on the line though, right? So like, let's keep it in check here. This is not a horse there's a high percentage that he's going to win, but is he an interesting horse to spread with, to include in a spread? Yes, right? Like when I spread, you have to put in at least one bomb, right? If you're going to pick 2, 3 or 4 horses in in a pick 4, one of them has to be a bomb that you kind of believe in, right? Or you want to take a chance on. Okay, the other horses that I like here is probably the 3 who's, let me tell you his name here, Roaring Kitty, probably the favorite. When I was looking at this, I wasn't, not a heavy deserving favorite though. He'll probably be the favorite just in the merit that Trackmaster rates him number 1. He's won once recently. It wasn't a super compelling win, but it was good. He was fast, right? Faster than the other horses in this field. So he's definitely the logical favorite. Is the Immortal Lock? No, but he's a deserving favorite. I think, right? Probably the favorite. I'm hedging there just because this next horse I'm going to tell you about is pretty good too, right? The 6 Mystic Moment. It's maybe not as fast as the 3, but he's won 3 in a row, so that means he's going to get bet down. He's switching from an amateur driver, albeit a good one, Todd Whitney, back to Grafham, who won with him twice in a row. Overall, this is a serious rise in class. I think for this horse, this is much tougher competition than what he faced before. So, some things to think about there. Another, there are other horses in this race that could win too, right? The 1, the 2. So this is it's definitely a spread race, and you've got to think. I think, are you going to go? How many are you going to take here, right? If you're spreading, I would be looking at the 6, the 4, the 3, the 2, and the 1, and try to narrow down and pick 2 or 3 of them. Anyway, that would be where I would take this. And of course, I mentioned that the 4 being that shipper from Northfield is the wild card. You've got to include him. That's where we're gonna get. That's where we're gonna get a bomb price. So you got to just take a couple of those. But it's a big time spread race. So go back, look at that race carefully, and make some decisions there. 7th race is another one where it's like which way do you want to go with it? And maybe we can get some value here, right? The 3 had the best recent time over the track, so that probably makes him the likely favorite. That's a horse stamped by Lindy. He's been running at a slightly higher level, so he looks pretty good. There are other horses in here that I like too, right? The 6, who's very consistent and almost always puts in an effort. That's the horse Just Roxy. Didn't quite put the speed up that the 3 mentioned, but he looks pretty good. I'd consider using him in the ticket as well. And then of course the 4. So those are the 3 logical contenders: the 3, the 4, and the 6. I don't think that we'll see a winner from outside of these 3. And I don't think you'll get much equity from any of these, right? I think they'll all be 2 or 3 or 4-1, and so you're not. This leg, I don't think is going to contribute to a bomb payoff as much as the previous 2, if something unexpected happens. So again, one of the contenders I think will win this particular race. Okay, that just takes us to the 8th, and we'll wrap this up. This is a field of 8 trotters running for 10,000. Here, there's potential, I think, for equity. I zoomed in on the 1, the 5, and the 7. I'll tell you about the 1 first. The 1 is Like a Warrior, driven by Bruce Ranger. If you don't know who Bruce Ranger is, he's a very popular driver in the New England circuit. He's one of Plainridge's top drivers historically. This horse gets the rail, which I really like Ranger on the rail. He's very patient. I mean, I think the horse will get away in good order, so it's not like this horse is going to be seventh at the quarter pole, right? I would be shocked if he's worse than third. And I think that that's an ideal setup for what this horse can do. And so I like that. The other one that I mentioned, hold on, pop back over here. The 5, getting some class and post relief for sure. So this is Mom's Cash. Now here's what I like about Mom's Cash, and I'm not sure how this horse is going to be bet. He's coming down in class for sure, or this is at least an easier race maybe than his last one. It's getting a little bit of post position relief, but there could be value here, right? The driver is Wally Watson. If you don't know Wally Watson, he drives mostly in Maine, occasionally in Plainridge. He's very selective. The horses that he drives in Plainridge, it's for, for the trainer Lisa Watson relation, and because he's sort of a middle of the road driver, there should be value in it. So I always like horses that have, on paper, they have the numbers that could win. So check. They're getting a little bit of post position relief. Check. They've proven that they can win at this level. Definitely a check. And there's likely to be value because the driver's not a top driver, right? So this is a equity inducing pick, I think, if you go this way with this particular one. Now, also here, like this, there's other possibilities. I think the 6 is interesting and should be evaluated, and the 7. I put the 7 in because this one could be a bomb. It's coming from Cumberland, so the track in Maine. And I told you earlier on, the equivalent times between Cumberland and Plainridge. I mean, Cumberland is like the opposite of Plainridge speed-wise. It's a very, very slow track, right? And this horse, the 7 Motto, again coming in from Cumberland, last out was in the 6th hole at Cumberland, which is bad. Finished second by a nose with some late speed still in the tank after after being out wide for 2 quarters. In that time, for that was 2:02, right? So 2:02 is like, on paper, this is like an infinite difference between Plainridge and Cumberland. The race before that, right at this very similar level, I think, as this race, the horse had broken equipment, also broke from the 6th hole and won. So Motto for sure. There's some equity in this ticket, but with this horse as well. I love spreading in this race, right? I love taking the 7 for sure, and the 5 and the 1 are my top 3. All of those for different reasons can win, and all of them for different reasons could offer value. When you think about who the favorite is going to be for a race like this, where it looks like a toss-up, I always look at like, who does Trackmaster rate as the top? Because that's probably where the money ultimately will end up. And that's the 3, Heart of Gold. And this is a very, very beatable horse. I think he the last 2 times he's run, I don't think it's been that great. 3 back, driven by Mitchell Cushing, he won at a level higher than this. So he can definitely win at this level. He's probably the most likely winner by a nose. But I would try to beat him. I'd probably include him in a spread because I don't think it's going to be like he's going to be 2-5, right? Like, I don't think spreading to him is like the end of the world. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Again, it starts Plainridge Race 5. Check it out. I mean, I think it's just a fun sequence to think about and to handicap and to get involved in. Anyway, so this is Harness Elite Daily. Thanks for listening. And, we'll be back doing this every day. we have many more features and segments that we're going to add in. We're just going to get everything up and running. And thanks again for listening, and have a good day. Good luck today.
You've been listening to Harness Elite Daily. Harness Elite Daily. Your edge in today's harness racing action. For all of today's free and premium content, insights, and picks, head to harnesselite.com.